What will our being at BoardSource make possible, either for creating the future or for our fellows, or both?
It's going to create tremendous linkages with other people and organizations who may never have been exposed to the ideas of creating the future and who are looking for a new way of being.
When someone refers to themselves as a fellow of creating the future, what that makes possible is the connection that their potential clients can make between the kind of work that they do and the thought, the entire body of thought that creating the future has made so evident in its publications, presentations, but in particular being connected to the BoardSource work, which people respect all over the place.
That people are may well be feeling and thinking very similar things. But as you had said earlier in a conversation that you were having with someone today, that you wouldn't even have been aware that this individual knew that this thinking existed or that the organization existed, yet when they had the opportunity that something came up, all of a sudden there was a simpatico. So by being there could well be people throughout the BoardSource world who have been thinking about this or have been intrigued by it and have not really had anybody to talk to about it, and now they would have the opportunity to have people there that they could say, oh, there is really a community here that I can participate with.
One of the most exciting thoughts to me is this can help build our community. It can only enhance it by bringing in new people with new perspectives who want to learn and creating new partnerships and just enhancing what we already have. Huge potential for that. I had to just make new friends because that's exactly what happens at conferences. You meet people, you suddenly discover what you have in common, you have a conversation, and the next thing you know, it leads to something else.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is the legitimating factor, that many of our fellows are honored by the fact that they're associated and they want to talk with potential clients about the fact that they're affiliated with and associated with creating the future, and to be able to say, oh yes, this isn't really out there. These guys are part of, we're part of the presentation at BoardSource, and BoardSource is thinking enough of them to have brought them in to do the presentation. I think that there's a legitimating factor for our fellows in having us present there. There's many people who have said to us over years, you know, BoardSource should really be thinking about this, and now they are. That's very cool for them, for the folks that are working with us.
One of the things that I am also aware of, and it's just from, you know, the average meeting in creating the future, which always seems to end up with, you know, you start with one thing and then all this wonderful, interesting stuff gets sprinkled on it, and you end up with this completely unexpected outcome. And, you know, I can't think of a meeting I've attended where that hasn't happened. The unexpected thing that comes up in the last 5 minutes. And so I anticipate that because of being part of BoardSource itself, being in the presence of all of those people who are really keen about thinking in new ways, that what we present and what we're talking about, inevitably somebody's going to sprinkle a bunch of interesting new things into what we're presenting, and we're going to end up with really interesting new ideas and possibilities and prospects and approaches that we couldn't have come up with on our own. So just being there, I think that the Creating the Future fellows will benefit from the opportunity to be in that venue where people will add new ideas to what we're already excited about thinking about and doing.
That people at the conference who get excited about this, even whether it's from attending the session or talking to one of us at the conference, are going to go back to their own areas where our fellows live and work, and they'll be looking for people to continue this conversation.
Yep.
That's absolutely true, to be able to find each other, not just at the conference, but to find each other afterwards, and to not be the lone voice out there talking about governance in this way.
You bet. And we hear people say that all the time. When you were in Ontario, how many people said, "Oh my God, it feels so good to know I'm not alone"? There are people who are thinking in these new ways, and they do want to make connections. And the more Creating the Future is well known, is out there, the easier it's going to be for people to find us in our various communities.
I also think it's going to be easier for fellows in the future to partake in events like what BoardSource is doing, because they will be familiar with the material. You know, I mean, this was an experiment on our part to apply. Obviously, this is the first time that BoardSource is open, but it's not the only type of conference like this. And I think that the more this happens, for other fellows, the more likely it is that they'll be able to participate in other events of a similar nature, because people are at least familiar with it, and I think this goes back to the credibility question or issue that you were talking about, Hildy, that it is not an out there way of thinking. It becomes a more legitimized or mainstream way of approaching things.
Well, and you know, one of the things that brings up for me, Dimitri, is the fact that the subject matter that we're going to be talking about, period, just the fact that we are going to be presenting about opening the doors and having more participatory governance and inviting the question. I mean, we're not pretending to have the answer that this is the way to do it, but inviting the question of what happens, what does it make possible when we open our doors and invite more participation into governance. That makes possible for our fellows, forget Creating the Future, that makes possible for our fellows to start engaging higher level conversations in their own communities around governance.
And this is so in BoardSource's mission, accountability and trust from the community. But what better way to create both of those things than to operate in this fashion?
Well, I already have a lived example. An organization that I'm working with, I've just been doing my board calls today and discovered that, and this is a big organization with a huge publicly funded budget, that the controversy that they ran into in the last 2 years was that board members were asking for financial information about the organization, and they were told by other board members and staff that you would have to do a Freedom of Information application in order to get the financial information about the board the organization for which you're responsible. And when I said, yeah, jaw-dropping, what? But anyway, the point of the story is that I was able to say, you know what, I'm going to be part of this conversation at an organization called BoardSource, where we're going to be talking about transparency and how it is that boards can move themselves from those places of fear to the places of openness, and the kinds of things that it takes. And I'm going to be learning as I go from other people the kinds of things that they're seeing and doing that help community to get into organizations rather than being excluded. And these people were saying, that's great, we want to learn about, we want to hear what you're doing, we want to hear about this organization that's taking this approach. So it's already creating that opportunity for me.
Well, and I thought this is a tremendous opportunity for our fellows as well, because there's a lot of people that can't afford to travel to a national conference.
Right.
What we gain from that conference, we can bring back to our community, so everyone benefits.
And I think it's very much along the lines of what Gail was saying about the good stuff that gets sprinkled on. What we're really doing, and the reason that it seems like the answer is over here when the question is over here, is we are using the framework to create favorable conditions for whatever high outcome we're looking for, and to create the conditions at the BoardSource conference for people to pepper that stuff onto our thinking, so that we can come back and say, okay guys, you know how we've been talking about this? Well, we learned this, and if you add these things together, look at what happens, and it's combustible. It's because everything that we're doing is creating the conditions for that. And you're absolutely right, Nancy. It just brings it on back. It brings it back not in a way of here's this discrete thing that I learned, but here's this thing and here's how it fits.
Right. I even had the thought of how will BoardSource and the people it serves be different just because we were there?
Right.
That, there's a huge potential for that. I mean, we saw that happen on Charity Channel it very quickly. When you ask the right question, there can be some huge aha moments that could happen at that conference.
Yeah.
That could help take BoardSource and all of the people that depend on it for information to some new places.
Yep.
If they're open to going there.
Yep.
And many of our fellows have talked about wanting to help BoardSource go there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Taking that one step further, it's not just the actual conference. It's the fact that all of the fellows who are already there will be getting together, and that we will have, the same type of thing that happened in Ontario, where we had people come together and engage in conversation that wouldn't have had the opportunity to do it in real time. So, though there were discrete events that caused that to happen, in this particular case, the BoardSource conference, it's still bringing together fellows who would not be able to be together in person, and that generates new thinking. That generates opportunities. This is the sort of sprinkling that you were talking about, Gail. Brings these folks together, ideas together, to who knows what the outcome is as a result of it.
Well, and one of the events that we're going to be doing is going to be not just our fellows coming together, but sort of an open house for creating the future, where, a bar camp, where anybody that we know, that we've met online, that we know from other venues, that we know from BoardSource, because many of our fellows are going to be there who do attend the BoardSource conference frequently. Tessa among them, to be able to bring people into to talk about what are we doing, how are we doing it, to learn from them in a not just our session, but in a comfortable having a drink session, where we really can cross-pollinate an awful lot. That's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to learn what we learn out of that, and to meet new folks.
Agreed. Agreed.
I'm also aware of thinking that one of the things that might be on people's minds is, what will we bring back from this conference? What will we be sharing as a result of what we've done?
When we got back from Ontario, we did a debrief online. What fun would it be to have a Google Hangout with all of us fellows who went to BoardSource?
Great idea.
And to share what we learned back out with the people who weren't able to be there.
Amazing.
That would be wonderful.
Oh, I'm excited now. I really want to do that.
Well, and we could also be asking the folks in our community, what would they want us to do as a result of this?
Yes.
What do they want to know? How do they want to know it?
That's great. I'm also wondering
What do they
if
want us to bring back?
I'm also wondering if BoardSource could be part of this as well. What does that make possible? If they're part of this debrief, it gives them a totally different insight into how their conference is perceived and what people are actually taking away from it beyond what they think they're taking away from it.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
You see, we just did it. We just took what was obviously one particular approach and sprinkled a bunch of stuff on it, and now suddenly
something new.
Wow.
Indeed.
Kind of like when you ask the Center for Social Innovation. No. Was it them or Mars? I can't remember which. Anyway, to participate with us in some way afterwards, and look at what you've ended up with as a result.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
One of the things that I'm excited about is that this is going to open the door to our having more conversations with BoardSource, to move outside. To their credit, BoardSource has made this whole conference about big ideas and taking risk. And to be able to we talk so much about cross-pollinating and about the fact that our mission is short-term. We want to infuse practices into all walks of life that bring out the best in each other. And if we can work with BoardSource in some way, that we're working together to influence some new thinking on the part of BoardSource that they then bring out into the world and it benefits their mission, that's really exciting. And I know that, again, a lot of our fellows have been hoping that that would happen. This really gives us the opportunity to start that conversation with them specifically, not just with the folks at the conference, but specifically with BoardSource.
It's really interesting.
Wow.
It's like a co-mentoring. You know, it's working with them and then working, you know, with their knowledge and their history and whatever, and just taking it to the next level, whatever that means. So.
Wow.
What's
Okay, I'm on fire.
Go.
Oh, just thinking about that. I mean, we switched our view from in to out, and suddenly BoardSource as a partner. I'm thinking about it in the ways that we talk about how we would engage funders. And I will always be grateful for the phrase, infusing practices in all parts of life that bring out the best in each other. I've used that now. I just heard that Monday. It's come up like 6 times since then.
That's great.
I think you hit it. It's the biggie.
That's sort of what I see the BoardSource opportunity
Absolutely.
for bringing the best out in each other, of not only the fellows, and initially and especially the fellows, but the only way that can happen is if it happens for everybody else. And that's what that's what's exciting about this, is the opportunity to have that happen on a scale that it's never happened before. And the stuff that's being sprinkled on, Gail, I have no idea what the end product is, but I do know it's going to be great.
It doesn't even matter.
What an opportunity to share abundance.
Yes.
Really. And I don't know exactly what, I'm still sorting through exactly what that means.
Well, one of the other things that I think that this makes possible, both for creating the future and for our fellows, is there is a desire on the part of many people. I get this sort of thinking thing, but I really could use, what do you call this? We need a name for a framework. We want to be able to tell, and that's important. That's really important, especially when consultants and practitioners are either our change makers are going back to their board, or consultants are talking to clients, is to be able to say, this isn't just some sort of, airy-fairy thinking thing. This was a presentation given at BoardSource about a specific framework that you can be using that is open participatory governance and high accountability for your board in a way that can bring you forward to connect more closely with your community. There's something in being able to name it. There's something in being able to say, this is the latest thinking that was presented at BoardSource. And again, it's a legitimizing piece. Again, it's a credibility piece. Not, for creating the future, but more importantly, for the starfish arms that are out there trying to make our mission, to accomplish our mission. The legitimizing of saying, oh, this was something at the BoardSource Cutting Edge conference. Okay, maybe we'll listen.
Yeah, and that's a very practical outcome. For thinking about what can happen here, a very immediate, direct, and practical outcome for the fellows is being able to have that to look at, rely on, and immediately begin to use.
Right. And I know that many of our fellows blog about what they see in the in BoardSource, in other organizations like the Alliance, what they see at the Stanford Social Innovation Review, that they then blog about that, then they then create videos about that they then take that into the university classes that they are teaching. And again, that not only accomplishes our mission hugely, but also helps further their work.